Now I'd like to demonstrate the process of modern finishes to use on our little casting here. Remember this little memorial, and in my mind I'd like it to have a metallic, a bronzy, goldy finish. Now I have an option. I could buy some gold spray can and just go and it would look like exactly that. Spray gold paint. I want to do more than that. Remember, it's to look like the actual casting, the actual finished memorial in location, and it needs to look much more realistic than just being painted. If it was a real memorial, it certainly wouldn't be just painted and put there. So I want to use the range of options I have in modern finishes to get a more realistic casting, metallic-like look. Here's how to do it. First thing, you mix some water and then some clear acrylic, just water-based clear acrylic, about 2/3 acrylic, 1/3 water, and I've got a little bit of gold pigment in here already, and I'm going to add some bronze pigment. I don't want it too flashy gold looking, I want it more of a bronze look. So with some of this bronze powder, I just mix that in here. Mix it in with the brush, making sure that all the powder is completely dissolved in the acrylic mixture. You can see that the gold has moved from more of the bright flashy colour to more of a bronze aged look. It's about half gold and half bronze. I mixed it with. Now you'll notice I'm using a flat, fairly stiff brush. The reason for that is that on my first coating I only want this bronzy gold mixture on all the high points of the casting. I'm going to leave anywhere such as in where their arms are meeting, any of those areas I'm going to leave and not have any, at this stage, any gold coating at all. Now I know that the tops of their head will be all original bronze colour. So I can brush that over there. Now instead of brushing the entire face, I will coat the nose and leave other parts just the raw plaster. Notice I'm doing the high part of the arm around here, the high part of the shoulder. I'm not allowing any of this coating to go into the join between the two arms. I'm leaving all that raw. I'm just coating the high points. And you can see the benefit of a flat, fairly stiff brush because it doesn't take the paint into any of those low areas. Remember, I'm not just painting it, putting paint on, I'm being very specific as to where I want the paint. Maybe some high parts down the back, shoulder, now the next step is to mix up some very dark colour, and I'll mix it in the remains of my bronze powder here because I don't want it just completely black. I want a little bit of that metallic pigment still showing through it. Here's how I do it. Some aqua clear, and I'm going into the same mixture that I've used before. Just a small bit of aqua clear, a little bit of water. Remember, about 1/3 water. I'll mix that first of all to get the bronze and the gold powder. Then some black pigment. You can just experiment with the quantities. Remember, with the opportunity to cast in a mould as many as you like, it means you might make 3 or 4 castings and just experiment with the various finishes to get it to the stage where you're really happy with what you've finished up with. Notice I'm using a finer brush because instead of going over on all the high parts, I want to get this coating right in the crevices of the figurine. It doesn't matter if you coat over the gold, because if you rub that later, especially with a damp rag, because the gold is actually soaked into the casting, it won't come off, but the black will. So all around here. Notice I'm only doing the low parts. I want all this to look as though it's in fact aged. Now, wash out my brush and just take that black blend it in rather than just having pronounced edges. I can just blend that black Now the third step, remember the first one is putting the gold over the original casting. Then the second step is this black in around all the low parts. Now the third one is to completely coat the casting. Now you say, but hang on, that's going to cover the work we've already done. Well, you're right, up to a point. But because we're mixing our own paints, we can determine how much pigment goes in. So instead of just completely coating it with one coat, we will coat it, but there's not enough density to completely cover what we've already done. Now this is particularly important if we were using the iridescent coatings, what they call interference colours. They change depending on what subsequent layers go on. So in this case, we're not putting enough pigment in to completely cover what we've already done. There will just be enough pigment to get the effect that we want. Here's how to do it. We use about a half and half mixture this time. Instead of 1/3 water and 2/3 acrylic, we're going about half and half. The acrylic goes in here, then we get some water. Mix the two together. Then we want some bronze powder. Now because the goldy bronze on the surface is the most striking colour, I want this to be a little bit different. Different in the sense that it won't have the gold look, it will have more the subdued bronzy look. And I'll put also just a little bit of black to make sure it's going to be less striking colour than these pronounced high parts. So a little bit of black pigment goes in as well. Then we mix these together. Now it's always a good idea to just, once you've made your mixture, remember part of this is experimenting, is to, on the base of the casting, just see what your coating is like. And in this case I can see that yes, it's not going to be dense enough to completely cover the work that I've already done. In fact, I'm quite happy with it as a bronze finish. So, completely coat the figurine, not worrying about going over what I've already painted, because I know there's not enough pigment here to cover up the effect of what I've already done. So this can be completely coated. Making sure we get all the little crevices so that our casting is completely covered. In under their chins, I don't want any part left. Notice I'm using the big soft brush, not the flat firm one, because I actually want the coating to go everywhere. Now here's a useful little tip. Dampen the rag and just wipe over. Picking up some excess, especially from, remember those high points where we wanted to make sure they stayed as lovely gold colour? Well, with this rag we're able to take off any of that third coating we put on to get back to the original shiny gold colour that we had on. Now once you've got that desired finish, the blending between the original gold and the black in the deep places and the in-between, when you're happy with that, you can just very carefully coat it now with some neat acrylic. This just seals the finish that you've done. And if you're careful with the brush, you don't mix it around in the acrylic, you're able to dip it in there and just get nice clean acrylic to go over the entire casting.